move on to additional business, and I think we can do this relatively quickly, although we don't necessarily want to rush it, but I think this is something that a lot of had some questions about, and if we push this off, we'll be in budget, so I think this is important.
You're the boss.
What did you say? If I say it's important, it's important?
No, if the chair says it's important.
That's darn
Well,
right.
then I'm the chair, so
That's
if I
right.
say
Oh,
it's
you,
important.
yeah, I thought you were repeating back to I said.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Very important. Hello.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
Still morning. Yes, barely. Madam Chair, Mr. Mayor, members of the committee, Tammy Queen with the Finance Department. I am joined by Sherry Adams, who is the city's risk manager, and we are flanked by some of our members of the Risk Management Committee, who I will introduce in just a moment. So despite what seems like a voluminous number of slides, we will try to go through these fairly quickly with the goal of providing kind of an overview to you all, and if there are topic areas as we go through that you find that you'd like to know more about, that is certainly something we will go back and prepare additional information for you on that. So the risk management program is in the Code of Ordinances, and it exists to establish policies and organize, lead, and adjust our activities here at the city to make sure that we minimize the effects of risk on the city. I think it's important to understand that risk management is not just what Sherry does every day in her role as the risk manager. It's not just what the law department does or the HR department, it's overarching. It's impacted by and should be really considered in everything that we do. And that's probably our main message and focus, that the Risk Management Committee, which is also outlined in the Risk Management Program, that's certainly one of our main focuses. So the Corporate Safety and Risk Management Division, which Sherry oversees in the General Services Department, implements the policies and organizes all of the activities to minimize the city's risk. So that's kind of where that lives, but of course it should be kind of pervasive in everything that we do. So the Risk Management Committee exists to develop policies that help guide the work that Sherry and her team do every day, as well as guide the work of the departments as they seek to mitigate risk for the city. Committee structure is outlined in the code. The Director of Finance serves as the chair, so that's me. Kelly Postlethwaite is our representative from the City Manager's Office. She is not able to be with us today. The committee also includes City Attorney Matt Gelati, Director McKenzie from General Services, Director Casey from Human Resources, and then, of course, Sherry serves on the committee as secretary, but a non-voting member of the board, of the committee. Not going to read these to you, just so you know that we have a risk management strategic plan. We started creating that strategic plan before Sherry arrived, and she helped inform kind of some of the last parts of it, knowing very little about what she knew at that time about the city and how we did things. So we are in need of an update for this, but wanted to let you know this has been a thoughtful approach. I know that when I joined the Risk Management Committee in 2019, when I became the Director of Finance, we were really about approving claims and approving settlements and things that fell in that purview. And we have really, under the leadership of Sherry, we've really taken that and this group that we have assembled and made it a lot more pervasive. And we're trying to expand that even further. So we look forward to doing that in a future strategic plan update. So this is our mission and vision. And then we have goal areas, much like you all have in the citywide business plan. We are also connected to the citywide business plan. There is a objective in the finance and governance goal that we would implement the city's comprehensive risk management program. Prior iterations of the citywide business plan said we would develop a risk management program. We're there. Now we are putting that into practice. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Sherry to talk briefly about some of the aspects of the program that we run for risk management.
So good morning. So personnel management, insurance risk transfer, shifting, the legal expense fund, workers' compensation program and fund, claims against the city, and litigation are all aspects of the risk management program. And So the city safety program exists to protect employees related to accidents, injuries, illnesses, as well as the public. We work through claims for them. Sections 2-1041 and 2-1043 Code of Ordinance establishes those practices and we provide effective education and training of employees and ensures accountability through enforcement of standards and policies. And as you know, we follow OSHA guidelines. We are not governed by OSHA. One of our major programs is the DriveCam program, and it assists us in driver training, coaching, mentoring, and hopefully preventing accidents. And so we did a comparison of our citywide 2024 to citywide 2023 of some of our behaviors. Unbelted driver, cell use, posted speed violation, near collision, possible collision, exonerations. Exonerations are huge. These are where we can say, nope, wasn't our fault. We can see what's happening. This is a great program. We've had a lot of success. Is it in every vehicle in the city? No. We have solid waste, we have fire, and there's a few health vehicles that don't have it. So we worked with our Lytics and DriveCam folks to put together a program to bring in those units and put them in every vehicle, whether they were turned on yet today or tomorrow, they actually exist in every vehicle. And this is just the metrics, so you all can take a look at that. And then here's a couple of exonerations, just quick little clips of what we actually see. We only get the clips when something is triggered. We don't watch video all day. That's not what we're here for. And they're pretty quick. And you can see where he gets jolted, and that's really all we see.
Whoops. There we go. Another example.
Just one more example. And why this is running, we've been really focused on seatbelt and cell phone. Those are areas where we can be effective. We still have fairly high numbers, and those are laws. So we're really working on the coaching, mentoring, and promotion of those, especially those two areas.
Oops, I keep getting my video to play again. There we go.
One of our new programs in risk management is leave and accommodations. We took over the program in January of this year, and we are now processing family medical leave, pregnancy leave, reasonable accommodation, and religious accommodation. Reasonable accommodation and family medical leave pair well with what we do for workers' comp. When people are coming off injuries, we're able to get to them much quicker and either get them placed, return to work, or in another position. So it was a good fit for us to take that on.
So EEO, Equal Employment Opportunity, this is a policy objective of human resources, but of course it's also in the city's code. We are required to provide an environment that's free from discrimination and or harassment. And again, this is not, we don't see this as just the right thing to do, but it's risk mitigation for us when we do follow those requirements. It's important also to make sure that we don't confuse this with the work of CREO, our Civil Rights and Equal Opportunity Department, or with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission or the Missouri Commission on Human Rights. So this is our self-contained program for the city. Through that, there is training and investigation by independent folks in Director Casey's department to investigate EEO complaints, and then we do provide EEO training to folks. I don't know if you want to add anything there, Terry, or nope. Okay, all right.
So another part of our division is risk transfer, and we purchase insurance. We have self-insured, which is self-insured retentions versus deductibles, two different programs that we can use for responsibilities in event of a loss, and uninsured. We also purchase coverage. For example, property insurance provides coverage for loss of property and contents. An example would be if Bartle Hall burned down, we would have property insurance and contents coverage. Another example is cyber security insurance. We have an insurance policy that has deductibles that we purchase each year. We also purchase workers' comp insurance over a self-insured retention of $2 million, and that's coverage to statutory limits. When no purchase coverage or SIR exists, legal expense fund covers for uninsured policies. For example, water main break damages or a slip and fall in a city facility, and it could result in litigation. I also, another little piece of what we do is insurance requirements and contracts. We review and recommend appropriate insurance requirements. We review and approve certificate of insurance for correct coverage and forms. We also have the ability to waiver and negotiate certain limits.
Okay, so moving to the City Legal Expense Fund, you all are fairly familiar with that as the Finance Committee. You don't see quite as many ordinances approving settlements as you once did, but those settlements are generally paid out of the Legal Expense Fund. That is outlined in the code, trying to always provide you kind of those guideposts of where risk intersects with the city's code. We use the Legal Expense Fund to pay those claims that are made by third parties based on liability of the city, its agents, representatives, et cetera, of course, subject to the limits of Missouri statute. These claims have to be reviewed and authorized by the Risk Management Committee, the city attorney, or the city council, depending on the limits. The City Legal Expense Fund is an internal service fund, and that's just a grouping of funds. You know, we have the general fund, we have special revenue funds, we have business type funds. An internal service fund is just another type of fund that we use to account for central services that provide goods and or services to other departments. And so we use our legal expense fund as a way to allocate costs out to citywide funds, departments, programs for both the legal staff that support the service as well as any anticipated legal claims and settlements. So we allocate those costs every year in the annual budget. So the budget that you are deliberating currently contains an allocation to individual departments and programs for their share based on past history, based on a multi-year history of claims. So everybody pays their share based on their experience. So the bottom bullet there is that if the department has more claims, then they are going to have a larger portion of their budget taken for funding to the legal expense fund. This is just a look at legal claims by type out of the legal expense fund. We've got the general liability claims, water and sewer and stormwater have separate accounts for their claims, public official liability as well as auto liability. And you can see the trends over the years. Again, the purpose of today is not really to dive deep into the numbers, but just really give you kind of an order of magnitude and something that we can come back and bring to you and discuss in more detail. This is just a graphical look at that same chart. Then we have our workers' compensation program, which again, we've provided the section of the code that corresponds here. And that requires that we provide coverage to eligible employees and benefits in a fair manner, you know, within the context of the case that presents itself for that employee. Sherry's group does manage this program, and we do have the return to work aspect of it, and as well as so that we can provide transitional work assignments. So somebody may not be able to do their regular job, but there might be something that they can do when they are injured to get them back to work as quick as possible. Sherry does conduct monthly meetings with departments to review the status of injured workers, and we do have a third-party administrator that operates the program for payment of claims against this fund. And the Workers' Compensation Fund works very much like the Legal Expense Fund. It's based on an actuarial analysis of past claims. and kind of a forward-looking forecast of what would be needed from each of the department's programs throughout the city to cover workers' compensation expenses. So it's, again, an internal service fund that pays for medical costs, disability costs, and any settlements of workers' compensation issues. And this is just another look at the Workers' Compensation Fund and the types of things that we pay from it. It should be noted the workers' compensation line is really the claims, and the excess workers' compensation line is really a misnomer. It includes excess coverage, excess insurance that we purchase, but it also includes kind of the cost and the expense of processing all the claims that the city processes. So that's what that second line really represents. This is a graphical look at that same table. It should be noted, I think, here that this may look alarming to you because costs are going up. This is based on the timing of the payment, not necessarily the timing of when the accident actually happened. So what you're seeing in the buildup in 23, 24, and 25 so far is probably due to the COVID claims that we had during that time. We've also had the fatalities in the fire department several years ago, probably about almost a decade ago now, that these things are, they catch up over time. So it's not necessarily that we're being less safe, it's that we're paying more right now for things that have happened in the past. So it's all in how that timing of that payment goes. And I'm going to let our city attorney speak to these two slides.
All right, and so as many of you heard during our budget presentation, the city attorney's office has a claims unit, and we think of claims generally as demands made of the city in various forms, pre-litigation stage, but it's also an investigatory unit that we have in the law department. We have 3 investigators, a supervisory attorney, and AA staff. That unit is a place where we appreciate a number of our claims, not in the workers' compensation realm, your typical tortious injury claims, or personal injury, property damage, auto vehicle accidents, everything from a pothole damage to a water main break and a sewer backup. We analyze those claims in the unit from an application of sovereign immunity and whether or not any waivers exist associated with the governmental activity that is alleged to be the cause of the claim. And we do that in compliance with council's established policy in the legal expense fund. Additionally, the law department outside of the claims unit, but handling claims generally like kind of small c claims, we will work with all the departments in responding to pre-litigation administrative processes associated with employment practices litigation. And so at any point in time, the city can have any number of what we call charges, and we'll work those on an administrative litigation, pre-traditional judicial litigation process. And then after you've done all your risk mitigation and all the other things that happen, at the bottom of the hill is litigation. And we manage almost all the litigation in-house. Occasionally we have some tendered defense, we have some contractual, we have some contracts in which we have legal services, specialized legal services, particularly like at the airport, bankruptcy work, those sorts of things. We'll handle that litigation with specialty contractors. But we handle most of the traditional civil litigation in-house, trial through appeal. We also handle the administrative litigated workers' compensation claims at the Division of Missouri's, the Division of Workers' Compensation of the state of Missouri. We use post-petition mitigation techniques, mediation processes, alternative dispute resolution when applicable, when available. And as you all are firmly aware, we provide post-litigation risk management advice. A lot of the times we're just confirming that safety's done their investigation, that HR has done their investigation, or that there are opportunities for us where those things haven't happened and we are providing enhancement to previously understood risk mitigation techniques that have either been implemented or could be, the dials could be turned on those things. And that's the purpose of those memos. You're not really learning anything new often in risk management memos from the litigation side of things.
Okay, so some major accomplishments that we will run through very quickly here. One that's really important and we're very proud of is that Sherry, our very own Sherry Adams, was named the 2024 Risk Manager of the Year by the Public Risk Management Association. So that was very big. This is her magazine cover. I have a copy of it in my office. I keep it displayed because it's very important. Truly, I think my colleagues would agree that the game changed when we hired Sherry as a professional risk manager. We had help before and it was great help, but really, truly, Sherry has kind of taken the program up a notch for sure since her arrival here. So that's one of the things we're very proud of. Got a few things here. Again, we've hired a great risk manager. We're working on a risk management information system so that when you have questions, we can spit out reports for you. And that's in implementation right now and hope to be, get that very robust database built so that we can provide information as needed. As Matt mentioned, we provide risk mitigation advice in memo. In memos, we have Sherry has really taken safety to another level out in departments and really gotten close with folks out in the field to help them figure out, what can we do before somebody starts lifting those manholes or, starts dealing with the equipment on their truck? How can we help them so that they stretch or whatever and don't hurt themselves? Some other things that we've done, a lot of insurance renewal savings have been realized since Sherry arrived for sure. She's watching those renewals for our purchased coverage very carefully. She was able to get the state of Missouri to agree to allow us to close an escrow account that the city had for decades on the books, and she got them to agree to allow us to do that. We did a City Hall fire drill. I'm just picking out some items. They're all very important. Certainly, we also added the Missouri Firefighters Critical Injury Fund, have had exonerations from DriveCam, and hired, very importantly, in general services, Chief Information Security Officer, more commonly known as a CISO, who has been instrumental in kind of taking the cyber security profile of the city up a notch. So that's just some of the accomplishments. And then the things that we want to work on next are we're going to update our strategic plan. Just highlighting a few things here. There will be some work task analysis review so that we can make sure that we understand what are the requirements for a particular job, lifting 50 pounds, be able to lift over your head, that type of thing. The Human Resources Department is certainly working on its Casey University and all the learning pathways there because a better trained management corps in the city is going to be better equipped to administrate all the policies of the city, including the EEO policy and all the other things that the city handles. And we want to also establish a citywide accident review committee. Currently, those accident reviews are handled department by department, and we'd like to take that to a different level so that it goes up to a higher level and has a little more weight to it. And you get people who might have certain biases or something like that toward a particular department or an employee. We take that out of their hands, and they don't have to do those investigations. And we want DriveCam in every city vehicle. I think that's 2 times we got to say that, so that's wonderful. We love that. So we are happy to answer questions. That was a very quick overview, hopefully quick. Yeah, I did okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Director Queen, and thank you and congratulations on your
Thank you.
award. That's very important. Why did I think that this presentation was important? Not only, I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of what you talked about is the right thing to do to protect our employees, our number 1 asset in the city, to protect the general public. But I mean, we are in the Finance Committee, and I know that it's a lot of what you are talking about has saved the city money. We want to avoid litigation, but it's also because it's the right thing to do. Because the reason why we are getting sued a lot of times is because the city is not doing the right thing. So when we talk about our policies and things that we need to implement, it's because we are not protecting our employees or we're not protecting the general public. And I just want to, I'm going to, some of it is not all about litigation. It's about preventing litigation. But I do want to, I'm going to prop the law department's quarterly litigation report for my colleagues, because that provides information and the status of everything. But also, as Matt mentioned, you know, the reports that we get when we now do see the memos does have the mitigation, because you do provide, when you see things that come in, you do provide recommendations. And the other reason I wanted to bring this forward is because we have had some policy discussions about increasing the authorization for the law department. We have ordinances on the table now about the healthcare trust and other things, and I think it's important to understand those things we don't talk about a lot of times, understanding how that works in the city. So that's why the chair thought this discussion was important. So any questions?
Madam Chair, I'll just say a few things. First of all, I spent more of my legal career, which was short, on the defense side. So I say we're sued because of these terrible plaintiffs' lawyers that just want to attack us. No, I'm kidding. Not our fault at all. Perfect operation. We're doing well, but I'm kidding. No, I think it is good for us to make sure we're doing this risk mitigation. One thing that I would find interesting in legislation, Director Queen, working with you over the last several years, we've done a lot of things, in my opinion, to strengthen our fiscal health, including fund balance policies as to quasi-governmental affiliated agencies and others. I wonder if we would want to mandate a risk management strategy for our many partners that exist that also aren't, or at least don't view themselves to be under the direct authority of City Council. We have found ourselves over time, I'll just use one example, Kansas City Museum, I remember, had a substantial, I think $600,000 or $700,000 cost that we ended up funding to address pipe or something. We see these issues with many other agencies and departments, up to and including the employment realm. And then Kansas City taxpayers still end up fundamentally paying the cost for all of them. And so some sort of mandate, I'd love it for somebody to explore if there's a good ordinance approach on that. Ms. Adams, I want to say for you, less on the kind of substantive side, but more on perhaps the flattery, but it's not because I'm just trying to be nice. You know, one gets asked often, why do we have a council manager form of government? And it's not just history back to 1925, which the former city auditor let me know. It's the 100th anniversary for Kansas City coming up, but also because of employees like you, right? The fact that there is a stable actor in our government who looks to what have been longstanding concerns, and rather than just a pendulum, which sometimes are helpful, but instead this consistent approach of saying, how do we look at what has occurred, what's coming in the future, and what are we doing to mitigate, is something that I find very impressive and makes us, I think, a very strong local government. So thank you for that work.
Thank you.
And we're lucky to have you. That's all I have.
Any questions? Councilwoman Robinson?
Thank you so much. I'm really concerned about the Director of Finance giving this presentation, but I'll just put that aside. So where do we get the slides? They weren't attached on the agenda, so where can the public get the slides?
I emailed them to you this morning.
Okay, can the public
public.
get the slides?
Well, that's a good question, because when we do additional business, do we normally put them on the agenda?
They're attached to the meeting. They're on our clerk's website.
They're not on the agenda. I don't see them on the agenda or the, not the slides for additional business. Are you saying that they're on the clerk's website?
Yes, ma'am.
So to resolve it, they're supposed to be on the clerk's website.
Can you
Confirm.
double check that? Because I looked.
Right.
Okay, so you mentioned, can you go back to the very first slides where you talked about something about the policy statements, the
Mission.
the mission vision, but it was right before the mission. Okay, so what policies are you all developing?
Well, some of the items are listed on the accomplishments section. They would be administrative regulations, which are the instructions to departments from the city manager about certain aspects of risk mitigation. So did we update DriveCam? I mean, there were a few in there those are the major policies that we're doing. We also, anybody else can feel free to chime in.
I'd say that there's a number of policies that are pre-existing and it's about updating and
Right.
it's not like there's a policy gap necessarily. I mean, if there are policy gaps, we try to identify them and point them out. But like, for instance, like accident reporting.
We'll go-
Uniform accident reporting would be an example of the manager having an AR that has existed since council adopted the risk mitigation section in Chapter 2. And so we'll look at that and we'll look at the form and whether or not there's an opportunity for the enhancements to the form to make that, now that's just an example necessarily. So it's not always new policies so much as it is gardening of existing policies. Drive cam is a new policy. That's something that did not exist pre-Sherry for sure, I don't think. We used other kind of, other tools, GPS tools, things like that, that didn't necessarily have the video component. That's an example of a newer policy, I guess, since 2019, 2021, since your arrival.
Yeah, another new one was the extreme heat administrative regulation
Tracks OSHA, tracks OSHA
to
guidelines.
help employees be safe in extreme heat conditions.
Okay, because if you can go to the workman's comp slide where it talks about, I think it was a $10 million increase in, yeah, thank you. So from fiscal year 2020, 2021, we were at 19 million, and now we're looking at 29 million. So you're saying, so from a policy perspective, my expectation that there would be some changes in how we're doing things as it relates to workman compensation. And is there a way that as we read these litigation reports, which are very nightmarish, I mean, when we look at the things that we're paying for, the taxpayer dollars, that we can't pay for other things because we're paying for litigation and lawsuits, it's concerning that we don't have a more robust policy response to really look at, okay, now that we're in these conditions, what are we doing as a organization to help mitigate that? And so when you say develop policies, it would be helpful to have that to help to offset what we read every quarter when we're looking at what we're having to pay for. So is there one place that you all are keeping track as a committee or as a group to say, this is what we're doing to keep these expenses low?
I think it's in slides, 34 through 36, which are, have some of the policies that we've created as a group since kind of really Sherry arrived here at the city. And so I don't know that there's one place because they're in administrative regulations. They might be revisions to the code of ordinances. They might be, just a program that Sherry and her team develop and go out to Public Works or to Fire or whatever department and say, oh, we're going to stretch before we all get in our cars today because we want to make sure you're limber and that you don't have a shoulder injury or something like that. So it's kind of everywhere.
Well, what I'm suggesting is that it not be everywhere, that there be some level of increased confidence from the city council that we're addressing these things and that they be sent to us comprehensively to say, this is what we're doing as a corporation to help to mitigate these things for the future. So while it's good that you all are working on these items, I think it's important for you to send that back to us and say, like, these are the changes that we've made since we have this new staff that's in place. My last question, can you go to the slide where it says $6.2 million for public officials? Okay, so we went from 3 million to 6 million. So outside of the council members, who are the other public officials that is the definition for this?
Yeah, the public official liability pays for employment practices. It's not necessarily council people. I hope you all don't have any employment practices coming out of your offices. I can't think of one since, maybe 10 years ago.
Good to know.
Yep. But, it has happened, and we help you when we can. The number here is mainly, these are employment practices, so rank and file employees who filed discrimination, harassment, those type of claims. Lag on some of these cases, again, that's the other thing, is lag on some of these cases can be 4, 5, 6 years, depending on when they actually go to trial. The large spikes from 22 to 23 were driven mainly by the shutdown of the courts and no trials occurring between 2020 through 2022. And then we had a number of items that were on appeal for a number of years that then came due in later years. And so a cost may have been incurred via a judgment in, say, 2018, but it didn't come due and final until 2023 or something like that. So there's a lag in this. This is not a linear, I don't think you can look at this and say there's a linear impact relative to claim volume, numerosity, or severity.
Okay, so, but the challenge is as elected officials, we should be asking and be demanding, like, what are the trends that we're seeing here and what are we doing to mitigate these trends? Because we did double, it's going up. No matter what your response is, we're not doing better, we're doing worse. So.
Well, I don't think that's a response that we are doing better. I'm saying that some of these, you can, if you have a judgment that comes due as opposed to a settlement that is, a settlement within a year is different than a judgment that came due from like 4 years ago. I'm just saying that this tracks payments. You're right about claims, what's going on from a mitigation perspective. I'm saying I'm not necessarily sure that this is an overlay for that. It may say, I think it causes the question, what are we doing? But I think, for instance, our quarterly litigation report, which illustrates volume in terms of claim filings. Claim filings is, take it out of the employment context for a second. If you have 5 wrecks at a intersection, you might have $25,000 in damage, but on the 6th one, you have a wrongful death. You've got $1 million to exposure, $3 million to exposure. And so I don't necessarily know that made that intersection any more or less dangerous because there were 6 claims at that one particular intersection. Kind of depends on what the circumstances.
But you would say as a.
It could be a mitigating factor. It could be a driver coming down the other side. It could be comparative fault. There could be a lot of reasons why that one particular set of facts doesn't say that that's necessarily more dangerous than it was, say, 2 weeks earlier. My point is this, is in saying that the expense of claims, workers' compensation cost is going up because the cost of medical is going up, but your Power BI report would illustrate that numerosity and severity are going down.
Yes.
And that's something that is not contained in the spreadsheet because this is an overview of the risk management program. I'm sure Sherry could really put on a display that we do annually for all the directors on the severity of the workers' compensation and what are the tools that we're using, or the safety program, which isn't detailed in this slide deck.
Well, can you add that to your litigation report so that in comparative to what the claims are, we also see what our responses are, that we're doing what we need to be doing on our side of things. That's all my request is more about what are we doing to contain these costs, and if we know that there are some training or that there are some things that we need to do to reduce these, that we're actually doing them. And so that would be helpful in that report that you give, because it's not just us seeing everyone's complaints, but it's when I send an email to the manager and I say, well, our EEO complaints are at this number, and the response is, oh, people feel more better about sharing their complaints, but there's no response, professional response about what we're doing to address the root causes, should give all of us pause to say, what are we doing from a management perspective to ensure that our employees are in a work environment in which is healthy and safe and productive. And so I put a point on that because it has a real cost. And as we're talking about the budget and the structural imbalance of the budget, what are we doing to get this in check?
Yeah, for what it's worth, I agree. I don't necessarily know that it fits in the litigation report, because I think that is the work product of a lot of other people. And I'm happy to work with the chair of the risk management committee and the risk manager and the city manager on all those things that do influence litigation. But honestly, I don't know all the things that's going on in Sherry's shop, and so if there's another report to be produced, that's fine. I just don't think it's my staff that's doing it. Again, I'll work with the Risk Management Committee to help folks generate whatever is necessary to give the council comfort of their staff working behind the scenes on these things, because all of it relates to less work for me and my team, quite honestly, and I'd be happy to do that.
Mayor, did you have a comment?
Yeah, Madam Chair, and just one follow-up point in addition to that assessment of risk management strategies being applied to all the agencies with which we work and who will be paying out liability from taxpayer dollars, which I find important. Similar to the one strain of Councilwoman Robinson's comments, we do get these administrative regulation updates. But small pet peeve for me. One, they just come and it's like AR 4450 updated, and then one has to try to read through 7 pages to see what the change is. And I'm an attorney, and one who enjoys doing it, but sometimes it's really kind of hard to know and understand.
Yeah.
I think some of the spirit of what we're discussing is what change is being made and what does it relate to, so that we understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And I would say to staff, this could sometimes avoid the resolutions that we have to introduce, because we find ourselves sometimes trying to legislate and say, oh, we didn't know you had a protection for X or Y thing, but you do. So that would be helpful. That's something I should know, but again, 10 years here and I don't, but that's why I appreciate the presentation. Like the administrative code that you have, is that accessible somewhere for all of us in the public, and where does that live?
Yeah, actually, I don't know the answer. I think you're saying where all the administrative regulations are.
Correct.
Yeah, they're housed on my Casey. I don't know that there's a forward-facing item, and regretfully, the city manager's office is not present today.
Okay.
We'll find out and supplement
Yep.
if that's a forward-facing item or not.
I would just say, just a very simple ability to do searches there sometimes probably addresses much of what we spend time on too. So thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.